Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with the striker talk. Been a few interesting noises around the moment regarding the striker situation. So let's kick off there. So Tanzolik, who's a decent source of information as well, has been fairly accurate in the past, but can be a little bit missy as well, is suggesting that Manchester United have contacted the entourage of Christopher Nkunku in recent days to inquire about the details of a possible transfer. Now, Nkunku was a name that we were heavily linked with in January by David Ornstein as well. I'm sure it was in January, or it might have been last summer when we were looking at Christopher Nkunku, clear connections with Christopher Vivell as well. So that could be one to potentially pay attention to. We know we're looking for forwards, we know we're looking for versatility, we know we're looking for maybe Premier League experienced as well, maybe a little bit older than what we're looking for though, 27 years old. What do we think about Christopher Nkunku? I mean, I could see a front three of Cunha and Bumo and Nkunku working quite well together, and he could play as the attacking 10 or could play as a striker as well, so it would give you a bit more of a rotation option up front as well. So that's maybe one to keep an eye on. There are obviously red flags so with Nkunku. Statistically, he is a good player. When you look at his metrics, work hard, it's like hard working forward as well. Pretty good in terms of his overall stats. In terms of goal numbers, 43 appearances for Chelsea, 14 goals, 5 assists, which is not a bad return for Nkunku neither as well. The worry is, and before you say anything, the red flag is his injury record, and this is just half of his injury record as well. Been fairly dogged with injuries at Chelsea, which has kind of hampered his progression there a little bit as well. Who knows what sort of price Chelsea would be asking for as well. Massive red flags for me though, buying an injury-prone player from Chelsea. Where have we seen that story before? But yeah, big red flag around the injury concerns as well. But other than that, let me know in the comments what you're thinking. Good shout, bad shout. Would I take him above some of the other targets like Gyökeres and Ekitike? Don't think so. But if you can't get those players done, he does tick a few boxes. He's versatile. Premier League proven. Yes, injury records, decent age as well, so wouldn't be against it. Would just depend on the price for me. If you're talking like £60 million, then absolutely no chance. But if you could get a decent deal, I would just be massively concerned about the injury records personally. But he would be, a decent option and rotation, maybe someone that could play in the 10s as well, because we do need other options if we're looking to sell effectively our other 4 forwards, and we'll go through the news on exits in a bit as well. But yeah, give us your thoughts. And Nkunku, yes or no, let me know in the comments below. Now, the other striker I just mentioned there is Ekitike that we're heavily linked with. So this came from an Italian journalist. I'm not entirely convinced by the credibility, though, and this hasn't been backed up by anyone of credibility since as well, saying that Manchester United are pushing hard to sign Hugo Ekitike. Talks between Manchester United and Eintracht Frankfurt are direct and continuous. Manchester United are working to reduce the £85 million asking price. Now, a few other more credible sources like Romano and even Ben Jacobs, I would say, has been quite good when it comes to the Ekitike news this summer. They've not mentioned anything since this, so I would hang fire on that and take it with a pinch of salt for now. I'd want to see a little bit more credibility before getting too giddy about us in talks with Eintracht Frankfurt, because the reality was the credible sources were saying that we've inquired about Ekitike, but the talks were being blown out of proportion. We'd maybe just rang and inquired and maybe asked a few questions to his agent and stuff as well. So I don't think it's advanced as what was being made out to be in the media a couple of weeks, well, in the last couple of weeks. So I'll keep an eye on it though for you. There's another update though, suggesting that we're in constant talks, trying to get the asking price down, but I'd want to see a bit more credibility personally, but give us your shouts on that in the comments. And sticking with the strikers, another one we've been linked with is Muani. As normal, we seem to get linked with him every summer. At the moment, he's turning into a bit of a Wesley Sneijder that we just consistently get linked with Muani. So Manchester United and, of course, Chelsea. Ian Kolo Randall Kolo Muani for a summer move. Now, that came from L'Equipe. Now, L'Equipe are actually a decent source as well, so that's one to potentially pay attention to, although, again, similar to the Ekitike news there, I've not really seen any credibility since that story came out, linking us with potentially a move for Muani. But what do we think? I'm not entirely convinced by Muani, I've got to be honest. I think he was a good player at Frankfurt, but then his career's kind of stalled at PSG, although he went to Juventus and did quite well in the second half of this season. So it just shows sometimes players are just not comfortable in their surroundings and the club that they're in and the style that they're being played at as well. Would I take Muani? I mean, if we're desperate, then yes, I would. But I would, again, he wouldn't be on my top list of strikers personally. But if we were out of options and and it's a cheap deal, maybe as a gap filler until we can get a more established striker, maybe next summer. Wouldn't be the end of the world, but it wouldn't be my first choice personally. But give us your thoughts and shouts on Muani. Now, another striker that we've been linked with is Moise Kean. So Manchester United have re-entered the race for Fiorentina forward Moise Kean. In the last few hours, according to Italian outlet Gazzetta, the Reds are said to be back more than before after previously showing an interest in securing his signature, and they represent a real danger to the Saudi Pro League as he is linked with a move to or interest from the Saudi Pro League. So whether that's just agent talk linking in with United to generate interest potentially. In the report, the Gazette said that Manchester United has shown an interest in Fiorentina striker Moise Kean. His release clause is €52 million, so £44.5 million, which is only valid from the 1st to the 15th of July. So there's a window of opportunity potentially there with Kean if you did want to get a deal done where he's got a relatively decent release clause for a striker, I suppose. £44.5 million, not the end of the world, not as cheap as what Liam Delap was, but we've missed out on that one as well. So if we're running out of budget, maybe that becomes a viable option. Had a decent season though as well. 44 goals, 25 appearances, 3 assists. Not a bad record. Again, is a striker that doesn't necessarily fill me with much confidence though. I've got to be honest, like Nkunku, Muani and Kean don't really excite me. I wouldn't mind Ekitike, but there's red flags around the price and his inexperience as well. But he is a prospect striker, so you could see that there's maybe room to grow and development in him. Whereas in Nkunku, Muani and Kean, for me, it would be a no personally. But again, it depends on the market and it depends on who's going to want to come, because we've got to remember the position we're in. We're struggling financially because we need exits in order to bring in a striker. So somebody that's cheaper like Kean, or if we can get a decent deal for Muani, might be what we're looking at. And then there's stopgaps, they would be okay. But again, for me personally, I'm not overly excited by these links, but give us your thoughts and your opinions on the striker situation. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you would fancy, Nkunku, Muani or Kean. I'd be interested to read your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, the reason we're heavily invested in the forward, so Charlotte Ducker, who's come out, who's a good source as well for the Times, has said that the defensive improvements under Amorim is why United are focusing on forwards, and they still want to sign wing backs this summer too. So that's really interesting because we've not really been linked with that many wing backs. But I definitely agree with the fact that we need to focus on the forwards, and that's why we're heavily invested in. Obviously, we've got Cunha done. We're hopefully going to get Mbumo done, and then the striker position, because goals win games and we lack goals in the team, which is why we're looking to strengthen that area. But interesting wing backs, because we've not really been linked with that many. The only one recently I could think of that we could potentially play at wing back would be Roger Fernandez, but then even those links I would say were questionable. So pay attention to that. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Let's go through the rest of the transfer news in terms of incoming first before we go to the exit. So Alfredo Padula, who was really credible one summer, but a bit hit and miss recently, suggested that Manchester United are showing serious interest in Richard Ríos. This is one to watch closely. So that's interesting because not Ben Jacobs, there was a report the other day from Danny Rust and Dean Jones, who are decent as well, linking us with Richard Ríos. I did actually read a report somewhere suggesting that maybe PSG were looking at Ríos for around £20 million. Now, that would be interesting because the other story I brought you was suggesting that his release clause was 85 million, and some reports were saying 20, but there wasn't any any sort of movement on that. But if PSG have been linked for around 20, that wouldn't be a bad shout for that price. Richard Ríos for around 20 million. Maybe you're talking 85 million. You might as well just save up and go for like Adam Wharton or someone like that if you've got that sort of cash to spend on a midfielder. And I don't think we do have that sort of cash to spend on a midfielder. So I think that's, massively unrealistic to be spending that on Richard Ríos. But for £20 million as a kind of gamble option, 25, experienced in terms of his age, not the worst idea I've heard of, but we need to wait and see. I'd want to see a bit more credibility regarding Richard Ríos. Now, another player who we have actually already signed that's set to join soon is Diego Leon. So Rich Fay said that Diego Leon will officially become a Manchester United player next week. Now, some of the players are due back in pre-season. It's been announced today on the 7th. Some are coming back on the 10th as well, depending on the international fixtures. I think Cunha's back on the 10th for those interested. So Diego Leon's going to be there, whether he's going to be straight into the first team or in the reserves, whether they're going to loan him out. I think they're going to take a look at him, give him the opportunity to obviously settle in like we did with Kone, settle in, find his feet, and then work out what to do with him for this season as well. But he looks an exciting prospect to bring in as well. So he's going to be officially a Man United player next week, which is good. Now, the other links we've been getting recently is regarding the keeper situation. So Manchester United are not currently looking at a deal for Emi Martinez. That came from Mike McGrath, who's a good source as well, saying that we're not necessarily looking at a deal for Emi Martinez. I think the Emi Martinez stories that I mentioned in yesterday's video are mainly coming from the agent, of being agent-driven from Martinez's side, where he's basically coming out saying, I want to go to Man United. It's not necessarily coming from this club side as well, which is what Mike McGrath's kind of confirming there, that we're not looking at a deal. But I think Martinez his agent is linking him with a move to United. So we need to wait and see how that plays out. I think Martinez would only come if Onana goes, and at the moment there's no real links with Onana going. There was reports of interest from Monaco, but they need to make a big bid. He's on big wages as well, so we need to keep an eye on what happens. The belief is we're going to be looking at selling Bayinda and bringing in a younger number 2 to compete with Onana. But obviously anything can happen in the transfer window, and if we did get an offer for Onana that we accepted, maybe Martinez does become a viable option from there, because he's obviously clearly wanting to come to United, which is not a bad thing in my mind. Now, another goalkeeper is, so Manchester United keeping tabs on Real Madrid goalkeeper Andrei Lunin as a backup plan in case their pursuit of Aston Villa's Emi Martinez falls through. United have made inquiries with his agent George Mendes over a potential move and are reportedly willing to pay €15 million. So that could be maybe a cheaper alternative goalkeeper to bring in. That report, though, came from Team Talk. Team Talk you do need to take with a pinch of salt, because they are a rumour and a gossip outlet, but I read the report and it actually came from a fairly decent Real Madrid news outlet, was where the source of the actual story came from as well. So that's potentially one to keep an eye on. Would be an interesting option to bring in. That would fit with probably what we're looking for if we sell Bayinda as well. So pay attention to it. Like the other stories, though, I'd want to see a bit more credibility before getting too excited or not regarding that situation. But we'll keep an eye on it, and I shall bring you any updates, but give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, obviously, the rest of our transfer window, a lot of it will depend on exits, and, we need to get players moving. But firstly, what are your thoughts on the Garnacho situation? I'm going to address the elephant in the room. For those who don't know, Alejandro Garnacho posted this on one of his many photos that he released on his Instagram account from his holiday in Ibiza, I think it is, with him, which has got everybody absolutely up in arms regarding it. And I can completely agree with why, but I'd be interested to hear what you think about the Garnacho situation. What do you make of him posting himself in an Aston Villa shirt with Rashford on the back? I don't necessarily have an issue with him putting a Rashford shirt on if it was a United one, but I think he knows exactly what he's doing there, and he's probably got the exact reaction that he wanted as well. Like, the thing for me with this situation is, I get why you would be upset with Amorim and the club for wanting to sell you and everything like that, and there's an argument for and against that situation, but that's just a bit of a fuck you to the fans, I think, and I don't like that, because it's not it's not the fans' fault. Many fans actually stick up for Garnacho and in Garnacho's corner with the whole situation as well. And that just, it's just immature, and it's just confirms to me that it's part of the toxic culture at United, the entitled culture that we just need to get rid of, and any player that's got this sort of attitude needs to go, regardless of who they are. And ironically, when you look at the players that we're looking to remove, you know, Sancho, Rashford, and Garnacho mainly. I don't think Antony I would throw in this. Like out of those four players, actually, here's a question for you, right? Antony, Garnacho, Rashford, and Sancho, right? I think only one of those is actually being sold because of football ability, and that's Antony. I think the others are all to do with off-field stuff and behind-the-scenes stuff and attitude and bits as well, because they're quality players. They just don't have the mentality, and they're part of this kind of toxic culture at United, in my opinion. Because, like I said, Antony, to be fair, has done really well with Betis, and he's got the right mentality. He's just not. I don't think he's good enough for Premier League football or for Man United. Personally, I think he can go to Real Betis and look really good, and maybe found his level there. And I think he's the only one being sold for footballing reasons and ability reasons. I think the others are being sold for off-field and attitude issues. That's the way, because there's no way, I think, in anyone's mind, or in my mind anyway, that you would be selling Garnacho, Rashford, and Sancho for footballing abilities, and it just highlights exactly where we are as a football club. But give us your thoughts and opinions on that in the comments. So sticking with Garnacho, Sam C has said that numerous clubs looking into deals for Alejandro Garnacho and United have received calls in recent days. Manchester United's stance is clear: meet our price and Garnacho can go. So United are, you know, taking the stance that, you know, you meet our asking price and he can leave. Samuel Lucas, who can't resist the opportunity to stab someone in the back or twist the knife in, said that despite Marcus Rashford's "my brother" comment on Garnacho's latest Instagram post, the pair have only ever socialised during United's team bonding dinners. One of Rashford's inner circles also once dubbed him a fucking Ronaldo wannabe. So that came from Samuel Lucas. Again, just stirring the pot like he does, being a bit of a shit stirrer. But the reality is, we just need to get these players gone. Any player that doesn't have the right mentality, I would take mentality over ability any day of the week, in my opinion. Now, another player that's looking to, we're looking to obviously sell is Sancho. So the latest there is that Fenerbahçe have inquired the conditions to sign Jadon Sancho. Napoli are also in talks, but the salary the player is demanding is too much for the Italian club. If Sancho does not reduce his salary, Napoli will not make a move. So Fenerbahçe might be interested in Sancho. I think they could probably pay a little bit more because the price is low. So they do pay high wages when the salaries, when the asking prices are low for players. So that could be one to keep an eye on. If Sancho wants the wages, then maybe Fenerbahçe would become a viable option. If he wants to obviously go for footballing reasons, I can't see why you would not want to take a pay cut to go to Napoli. And Napoli's president, though, Giovanni Mano, or his sporting director, on Sancho said, our offer is clear. We will not pay Sancho's requested salary, so they're not going to be paying him his salary. Alfredo Badula said that Fenerbahçe and Arab clubs have inquired about Jadon Sancho, no decision yet. So he could have options to go if he wants to go somewhere for a paycheck in Fenerbahçe and potentially a Saudi Pro League. And then some more Turkish outlets that are fairly decent have said that Fenerbahçe have made serious progress on a deal for Jadon Sancho. It is moving forward. So we need to keep an eye on what happens there. And in terms of exits, Charlotte Ducker, again from the Times, good source, said that Manchester United are hoping to make around £100 million from sales of Alejandro Garnacho and Rashford. Well, we know we want 40 for Rashford, so that means we want £60 million for Alejandro Garnacho. And, you know, good riddance, in my opinion, to any players that don't have the right attitude. And the sooner we get buyers, and for some of these players, the sooner we can wave goodbye to, you know, the attitude, the whole kind of drama around certain players at United. I'm sick of it, and I just want to get rid of the players that any player like that. I don't care who it is. Don't care if it's Amad Diallo or Bruno Fernandes or any player that I like. If you're part of that toxic culture at United, then goodbye. In my opinion, I think Amorim is stamping his authority and hopefully needing and wanting to do that. But that's all the latest news. So give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's all up to date with the latest news and transfer updates. Smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.